The test is this: run 5 miles at a certain heart rate and see how fast I can run without going over. The heart rate is going to be 180 minus my age, which is 44, plus 5, 141 beats per minute. This is the formula from the Maffetone Method, and this is known as an MAF test. This is also a test of the Alphafly 3s. I won the lottery, finally. Though I have now a lot less money, and I'm also stuck with this colorway. So it doesn't really feel like winning. So why am I doing this? For 2 reasons. Number 1, I'm running a 5K on June 9th, and I want to see the correlation between the aerobic base and the race performance. And number 2, I want to see how the Alphfly performs against other super shoes like the Wave Rebellion Pro 2 and the Metaspeed Edge Paris. Now, the only note I have before I get started is that it feels like 87 right now. The humidity is 90% and the dew point is 77, so it's slightly more oppressive than it normally is, and that usually affects the later miles of the test. Okay, now one of the biggest misconceptions about the Maffetone Method is that it's all a bunch of easy running, and that's not true. There's speed work involved. To note, I am not doing the Maffetone Method currently, but I am in a speed block. So I hired Matt Fox to be my coach. We're doing some 5Ks and 10Ks over the summer, and then I'm training for the Marine Corps Marathon at the end of October. Ooh, 145, too much. All right, the first mile is done, 7:27. That's a lot faster than I thought it was gonna be in this weather. Here's a hack. One of the best MAF test hacks is to just set your watch to heart rate. Don't look at the pace. Just don't even look at it. Just keep it at that heart rate, because like for me, if I see that I'm like, ooh, 7:36, or let's say like when I first started, it was a 10:15 and I was like at 10:17 and I'm like, oh, I really want it to be 10:15, and I would like maybe pick up my pace a little bit. My heart rate would go over just a little bit so I could hit some sort of number that means something to me somewhere in my brain. It really doesn't mean anything. I suppose at a certain point I should talk about the shoe. The shoe feels really good. I mean, it's early, but it feels like they've addressed anything I would have had an issue with the Alphfly 1. Feels more nimble underfoot. The roll through is there. It feels less disconnected. And those are 2 things that I really wanted late in a race. Overall, I have a little bit more control of V3 than I did with V1. As a consequence, maybe there's not as much bounce by like an 80th. Like, it still feels amazing. I don't know if it's nostalgia, but the one felt slightly more aggressive, but this one feels like you have more control. We're in mile 2 and I can already feel myself slowing down. My shirt's getting sticky. I'm already sweating off of my face. Thick. Okay, mile 2 was a 7:49, a 22-second slide. That is not normal in MAF tests unless you're beginning really with my aerobic fitness. I should be able to roughly hold the same pace for at least 5 miles. And the more aerobically fit I get, you might be able to hold the same pace at the same heart rate for about like 2 hours, 2 hours, 15 minutes, assuming that the weather is decent. One of the reasons that I'm doing this is like a field test to see how my aerobic fitness is versus my result from the 5K. Maffetone, in his big book of endurance and racing, the yellow book, there's a chart in there. I looked it up last night, page 92, and it has like equivalent performances. If it was much cooler, maybe let's just assume I could run a 7:30 MAF test. It says I could run an 18:38 5K, and I can run a 5K much faster than that right now. I think what's kind of silly about it is I could just look at like a VDOT calculator and see what 141 is in relation to my heart rate max, which I think is around 197. And I can say, oh, that's a percentage of this, and then just look at VDOT calculators and kind of see where my fitness is. All right, mile 3 was 7:53. So I'm assuming that the next 2 are gonna be 7:50s, low 8s. I don't know how to adjust for the weather. I'm not interested in doing all of that. It doesn't really matter. And the reality is, it's like when I run the 5K, June 9th, follow along, here's my Stravas, it's gonna suck. I mean, like, the weather's gonna be probably similar, maybe less oppressive, but it's gonna impact my performance in a similar way. I noticed that when I film, I tend to go over the heart rate by a couple. I can notice because I start to get out of breath. Okay, mile 4 was an 8:02, so we're slowing down. I did film some of the shoe there, slow-mo. So we'll see like the average of the heart rate at the end. Some of them might be like 142. Right now it's 143, and slow it down. All right, and for my last mile, it was an 8:08. I'm not sure what the overall average was. Other things I was thinking about that can impact performance is how much sleep you got. I got plenty of sleep. If you are sore, like if you had workouts, if your body's fatigued, I had a little bit of leg turnover yesterday, also shouldn't really affect it. It's mostly the weather. If the weather was cooler, I think it would be around that 7:30. Thoughts on the Alphafly? All right, Alphafly, I'm gonna have to make a first impression video. I think it speaks to all the other companies that have started becoming more super in their super shoes. It makes the magic of the Alphafly feel slightly less magical. It's still a very magical shoe. It is wonderful. I'm probably going to take this shoe out for the Marine Corps Marathon. I think it's just less impactful putting it on after running in the Mizuno Wave Rebellion Pro 2, which I just love, and the ASICS Metaspeed Edge pairs, which I also love. Those shoes are special. So it kind of lessens the impact of the ride, but I got to get my brain wrapped around it. Anyway, oh, I almost forgot the results. Okay, so I just got on Strava. It was 7:55 pace, 142 beats a minute. I went 1 over, so gotta throw the whole thing out. It's a wash. I also like to check the weather at the end of my runs. The feels like is now 90. It feels like 90 instead of 87, but you know, it's all the same. Oh, I wanted to say 2 more things. One, how I know I'm getting more aerobically fit. It's not just these MAF tests. I could see that my easy pace is getting faster. I can tell when I'm running, and also my resting heart rate overnight. I'm using, you know, I have the same watch. I know they're not super accurate and all this stuff, but it's the same data, right? I'm using the same watch. I'm going to sleep. I can see that it was 48, 49, it's 47, 46, 45, 44, like consistently now it's in the low 40s versus the high 40s, so I know that aerobically I'm getting fitter. The second thing that I wanted to say is I'm gonna come back in cooler weather, maybe mid-October when I hit the taper for the marathon, and yes, I'll have a lot more fitness under the belt because that much time has passed from June to October, so hopefully I'll be fitter in general. But I'm gonna take the same shoes out and we'll do another 5-mile test and we'll see how much the needle has moved. Be human. No gators got me though, so no gators here. I'll say that. We came along from last place, bottom to top of the fast pace. Out of this surf I get touchdown. I take a loss, get it back 8. I'm in the gym putting numbers up. You're never there, you got bad traits. Never excuse.